Attack to port. Shields up. Oh, well, hello there. I wasn't expecting you on the bridge. I'm just putting an end to some new Trek interlopers, but we'll have time for the captured replicants in a moment. Don't worry. All right, Mr. Zachary, target them. No, target their bridge. No, I don't want anyone walking away from this one. Fire! Full spread! Got him! Yes! Nice work. Alright, listen. I want us out of this system. Shields up. Let's get ready to jump. Mr. Gaetano, engage warp speed. Whew! Boy, let me tell you, I was with the Federation a long time. I never thought I'd fight against them, but these new Trek monsters must be destroyed. By the way, it's come to my attention a lot of you still haven't found the time to like or follow this channel, and that's fine, but it would be better if you joined us. You can help me take it to the new Trek losers who have been destroying entertainment. People led by J.J. Abrams and Commie Commodore Kurtzman. We just destroyed one of their vessels. We're not going to take any prisoners when we attack, and we expect no quarter from them. We've seen how they fight in social media. Now listen, I'd like you to join me as we take a walk down one of the more pleasant and less occupied decks of the ship. Gosh knows that the bridge is a busy enough place without guests, so I'm sorry. Please just follow me this way. Oh, we have some intel from our new Trek losers. We've intercepted some of their communications. Let's take a listen.
I'm Ensign Sylvia Tilly. I'm Discovery's newest addition.
Oh God, these people are already making me sick.
The Starfleet's command training program. Yeah, you.
Why would anyone put a trainee on a ship as experimental as the Discovery? And by the way, I reject them as Star Trek. They are not Star Trek. Let's get in a turbo lift. Whew. Alright, well, welcome to the promenade deck here. It's really just where most of the crew gets together and socializes. Everyone's gonna be pretty flush with victory, but we have intercepted more replicants from the hole in time. It appears what happened is one person accidentally ordered the box set of the Rings of Power, something they've sold only one copy of. Now, when they made this, they botched that too. They can't do anything right with this project. When they made the Rings of Power box set, instead of making a reproduction of the show, the computer at Amazon rejected that as illogical and instead created replicants of the writers and of the cast. And now, as we've seen, the writers are very, very sick and very, very insane, and those replicants are being kept under maximum security. However, there are also replicants of the actors. Now, these are not the actors themselves, these are just replicants that the Amazon computer made by mistake, but they also have managed to escape through a hole in time and make it to where I am in the 24th century, hovering above Queens, New York. And by the way, you can hit those like and follow buttons anytime. I have intercepted Ben Walker, who was High King Gil-Galad, and Charles Edwards, who played Celebrimbor in the Rings of Power. And it turns out that what the new Trek writers did was just absolutely unconscionable when they became the Rings of Power people. When they became the writers of the Rings of Power, they simply lied to the cast. They kept them in the dark. They wouldn't confirm anything, and they went on to have them do this performative song and dance, which is absolutely terrible, but without any real preparation, because they wouldn't be able to answer questions, they wouldn't be able to direct them, they didn't know what they were doing. We've dealt with the replicants of the writers, so let's see. I have adjusted the AI. Last time we had Scott Davis. He was an Australian interviewer from Hey You Guys, which is also the source of this interview with the cast members. Now, the cast members are not very sick and insane. They seem very normal. However, these are only their replicants. In your time, I've been told that the actors are no threat, they're nice enough people, and that they should be absolutely left alone and not bothered because they didn't write this. They were just as lied to as you, me, and Jeff Bezos, and no one's been immune from it. So let's just see. I've readjusted my AI to a slightly different tact. Let's see. Let's start the questions. It's just an interview. We've recreated the interview that these two actors were at immediately after the screening. And this is on August 31st of this year, 2022. Now, some of you might be on the stream live when it debuts, and some of you might come by later, and I want to thank all of you for being here. And with no further ado, let's just let my AI start talking to them and see if we can put them at ease. Why don't you go ahead and ask them?
You're under arrest.
No.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions.
No.
And I want to have them answered immediately.
No.
Australia.
No. That part was right. Listen, you're taking the wrong tact. Try it again.
Ask you a bunch of questions.
No.
And I want to have them answered immediately.
No.
Australia.
I'm back.
All right, listen. Maybe you're not the right guy for this job, but we're going to interview these actors anyway. It looks like Admiral Teag is going to have to take care of this one himself. So anyway, let me put up on my browser the correct picture for you, because I want you to see these actors. They're fine. Now, we saw them in Rings of Power, and we are seeing them again now as they were back on August 30th of this year. It is none other than Charles Edwards and Ben Walker. And you can see, if you cannot read what they're saying, the first question they are asked is if they are tired of talking about the Rings of Power. And what comes out right away is not only are they not tired of it, they're like bursting with enthusiasm. Well, they've got a lot of stuff that they want to know about this because they only just saw it. Bursting with enthusiasm would be the wrong term. They are, well, I'll let them say it for themselves. The interviewer starts out by congratulating them on their show. He's got a very Australian colloquial way of speaking. Okay, so now we're getting into the cast. They've just indicated, Ben Walker indicates that he is not, in fact, tired of speaking of it. And I think Charles Edwards jumps in. He's celebrimbor over on your left as you look at this.
It's an amazing.
It's an amazing show.
It
yeah.
is. Well, because we've only seen it quite recently too.
That's key. We saw this cast trotted out. We saw this cast sent out there to defend this, and they had only seen 2 or 3 episodes. And now I think they've let them see up to episode 6, and they saw it in some sort of theater-like environment. But Charles Edwards and Ben Walker, they absolutely know something is up, and they are not comfortable at all. They can tell there's something not right with this production, but they've been thrown right into the press availability with no time to think about it, almost as though the writers didn't want them to be able to field questions. Let's hear what they have to say.
So we're not sick of talking about it. We're, you guys come in having seen it. We were going, I know, isn't it great?
Right.
Yeah, so it's very exciting.
It's strange how many of these kind of interviews and junkets I do where you talk to someone.
This is where the Scott Davis just says.
Somebody else.
I love that.
Most people haven't seen the movies in the whole yet, and that's probably true. But I don't think too many people saw 6 episodes as strange, mind-blowing, and horrific as the 6 episodes of the Rings of Power, where we saw. Now these people still aren't aware who survives the apocalypse at the end of episode 6, when we have a pyroclastic flow that envelops every single character we've come to know except the great Pharazôn, and it's the next week we find out that really no one is affected by this 1100 degree nuclear blast level explosion and pyroclastic flow that we end episode 6 with. So these people's minds are blown. They've seen some spectacle, and they've been part of more productions than maybe some of these writers, so they have some real questions. So let's let Celebrimbor here, Charles Edwards, and Ben Walker take it away.
Oh, that's in there?
Yeah, but is it good that you've actually been able to see it so you can see?
Now, this is a question they're going to have a problem with. Is it a good thing you've seen it? You know, you did a lot of work on it. Are you excited? And again, the people from Hey You Guys, the source of this, link in description, you know, it's not really their fault. They thought they had a hot interview, and there was no way these writers were going to go out there and talk to anyone without having the questions written down first and without having choice of question, and the interviewer was not going to be able to use the kind of methods my security chief here wanted to use.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You're not that tough.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Say it as many times as you want. It's not going to make you any tougher.
Come on!
You're a good security chief, but you know what? Maybe I need to handle the interrogations around here, or at least the interviews. We have a lot more sympathy for these replicants than we do for the very, very sick and insane replicants we ran into of the writers. These replicants have been mistreated, and we're going to look for a safe non-Federation world where they can live out a happy life after this. But listen to the level of deception they were subjected to. You know, does it deliver the promises you thought it would then when you signed on?
Deliver on all the promises that you thought it would deliver.
Let's hear.
And then some.
Yeah, 100% more.
I mean,
They don't really know, and maybe it's time now for the more candid shot where you can see, and even in this shot here, which is, you know, the marquee shot, it's not unfair to use this shot. It's when their names are up. This is how they look. And they do not recover from the spectacle of having seen their own show and how not very good it is that they are never quite back on their game. And here you can see, you know, from about, you know, maybe 25 seconds, a minute later, they're still like, this is the moment when Ben Walker uses the term gobsmacked, which is a British term for completely shocked and surprised. But let's let them go forward. He's saying it. He's about to say it right now. I'm going to bring it back just a little bit to the interviewer, and then I'm going to let it go for the actors here. You know. So what do you think of all your hard work and deliver?
Yeah, 100% more.
I mean, I'm still gobsmacked by it.
Yeah, the love. It's the work.
Yes. Ben Walker is telling us the truth. His replicant here. Gobsmacked by it. And then he makes that same expression you see here. He's completely confused, and he's hunting for things to say that aren't going to get him in trouble. And yet, at the same time, he's not going to go after neither of these people go after the fans. They realize that they have been had, and they are feeling it about some of the things that they were made to say before they saw the goods, and they have no choice. They are locked in. These poor replicants were held hostage by the replicants who created Rings of Power. But let's let the replicants of Charles Edwards and Ben Walker go on.
It's the. When I first saw it, it was what I was particularly struck by.
He's stammering here.
It was the credits at the end.
The best thing about it was the ending. I agree with Charles Edwards there. Fair.
And you just go, what an extraordinary bunch of
what an extraordinary bunch of 25 executive producers who did nothing, including J.J. Abrams.
Passionate, talented people have made this extraordinary piece of television. And it really is. I mean, it's something.
It's extraordinary, all right.
And I'm watching it again tonight.
Yeah.
Like
that's Walker.
You know, of course, the first time you see it, it's arresting.
Walker's right.
You're having to separate yourself as an objective viewer from a participant.
I've got to give it to Walker here.
As a viewer, the second time I saw it, I went, oh, and then that's you are parsing out the details and enjoying the nuance of it that's there.
Right.
So I'm excited to see it again because I know I'll see something new. Another little
listen to this
nugget of storytelling that I may have missed last time.
Now that is what you call an admission, my friends. I couldn't understand it when I saw it, and I was in it. And you know, let me tell you something. That doesn't make him dumb. We didn't understand it. I didn't understand it. The writers didn't understand it. And every week they're out there in the media and in Twitter and other forms of social media shaming their critics and saying it really did make sense. Well, here are two veteran actors who are absolutely shocked and realize that they have been had. They were negotiated probably to a more favorable rate for their services, even though they went to New Zealand. And this is what they got from it. I mean, I don't have any malice towards the cast of Rings of Power. Just like I don't have any malice towards the cast of Star Trek Discovery. They were lied to. Wouldn't you agree?
Come on.
I don't think they were in on it, Arnie.
Conan.
Yeah, maybe Conan O'Brien would be nicer to them, but they've only got me. I don't know, Arnie. You are a great security chief, but you are in no way reassuring me that these replicants are going to be treated any better. In fact, I don't want you taking any liberties with them while I'm not around. Just be careful with these people. Hey, come on, they've been through enough, Arnie! Arnie, back to stand down. Stand down. Jeez. All right, listen. We just let me handle this, okay? Riker. Can I trust these guys? What do you think? What do you think what they say?
It's false. No way.
I have the most cynical crew in all of what used to be Starfleet. Thank God we're not in Starfleet anymore. Making simulacrums like this used to be banned by Starfleet. And I wouldn't do it myself because it is sort of immoral. But they were made by Amazon. They found their way to me. They're not the people. They're programmed with the memory engrams of the people who are in the show. They're giving the exact same answers on our holodeck they gave on August 31st after their writers really locked them in, set them up, and sent them on a press junket under false pretenses. And it is dawning on these two actors who seem to be among the more veteran cast members. Certainly they're a little bit older. And I gotta say that Ben Walker's a much better looking guy in person than he was in that costume. Charles Edwards, we got an accurate read on him, but even he looks a good 5 years younger and healthier out of costume and out of character. And I mean, geez, like he could almost play an elf here. He's a little on the old side for an elf, but he could almost do it. Let's let him go.
Yeah. So much of the television I've seen lately is binge worthy, but nothing.
I guess what he's saying is you got to really give this story time, huh, Ben?
Past that, like I think people you keep going back, like
the books.
Yeah.
He's trying to say I didn't understand it and I need to see it again to figure it out because he's giving them the benefit of the doubt that it makes sense. It does not. Ben Walker probably knows by now it did not make sense, and I hope for his sake he's not locked in. But I think next season they film in England, so. Hopefully that's where you're from if you're a cast member, because that's where I am at.
I mean, how are you guys on? Where do you sit on?
Okay, this is the AI again. He asked them and everyone some of the same questions, which is why I feel some of them definitely came from the writing staff and the creators. And he says, now, this was going to be a movie, but it ended up on TV. It ended up streaming. What do you think? What do you think about that turn of events?
It doesn't feel like a TV show. It feels like an epic.
Does it feel? And the AI I've programmed off Scott Davis, the interviewer, he's a nice enough guy. The only problem with using him for the whole interview is that he's a very colloquial Australian, and so unless you're Australian, you will not understand him. He's calling everybody mate, which is cool. But, I live in New York. I see a lot of Australians. I get what he says. But if you're from, the Midwest or somewhere else in America or another part of the world, this Australian accent, it's one of the more outlier English variants, Creoles of British. But, as an American, I guess I can't take any shots. I speak a derivative version of the language, too. It's just that mine is somewhat more popular. I got to go for Davis here, though, because listen.
Saga. Does this deliver on that?
Again, he's asking, does it deliver on the promise of being a saga, which is the second?
Feels like it's a very cinematic thing. But
they were promised a couple of things here. They were promised that they would be in a Tolkien-like show, which Wasn't an outright lie, but they made a lie out of it with the show.
If that's your preference.
And then they were promised that it would be very cinematic and not like TV at all. And we saw something that was on par with, episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation or Star Trek The Original Series, which were filmed on the equivalent of $250,000. Maybe for the original show was $180,000. And maybe for The Next Generation 30 years ago, it would be the equivalent of, I heard somewhere, $8 million of 2022 money for 42 minutes of television. So something like, like $80,000-$90,000 a minute. Amazon was at $175,000 per second and over $1 million per minute of this terrible show. So they were promised it would be cinematic. What we saw was on par with the two Star Trek shows from 30 and 60 years ago. Let's hear how they react.
My takeaway was I gotta get a bigger television.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, he didn't get it, so he's blaming himself. He's not gonna blame the people who he's under contract with. He's been mistreated by them, and I don't blame him for having to take their side.
It's very true.
You'll miss stuff. I mean, watch it anyway.
This is the second time Ben Walker and Charles Edwards just keeps concurring with him. We didn't catch everything. We need to go watch this again to understand it. And what you're going to find out is, no, you caught everything. Your characters are dishonest liars. And Ben Walker really seems conscious of this, that he played a total douchebag and was not told anything about it.
Any way you can, but if you're watching it on your phone, you're going to miss some stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, he's trying to blame technology without being too mean, and he's not doing the same kind of flexes that the writers did, and neither is Edwards. Walker and Edwards are likable here. Ben Walker and Charles Edwards did nothing wrong. They tried to give us their best performance, but we saw what they had to work with. Listen to how they were treated.
But I do have it might not be quite big enough.
Charles Edwards has a big TV, but even he says, maybe me big TV isn't big enough to get this show. And no TV is big enough and no cinema screen is big. They just saw it on a cinema screen. They don't get it. So, just the idea that maybe it might not be the fault of the writers that it's bad is all they're trying to say. And then, it's coming off a little bad. It sounds like they're telling us all we need better TVs. But what they're really saying is, we didn't get it and we can't say it's bad.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing it on that. I mean,
Both these people want to see it again to figure out what the hell happened in that show.
Which is amazing.
Which they're putting it in theaters.
Which apparently they are, yeah.
Yeah, that really didn't happen. They put a little bit of it in theaters, a very small fragment. But who knows what these poor replicants were told.
If you have a chance.
And they may do more of that as we go. I don't know.
No, it's not going back to theaters, Charles
it's
Edwards.
Astonishing on the big screen.
Yeah,
it's astonishing, all right, but not in the way you thought. Now, my Australian friend, he's about to go again. Let me read for you what he says as far as the captioning goes. And the captioning on this is a little off because the caption catcher is probably set to American, and this guy is really not the furthest thing from an American English speaker you could get. Not that he's a bad interviewer or a bad guy. Don't go after him either. He seems all right, to be honest, and he has some empathy here, and he has every right to feel bad for this cast. And he's just been through it with the horrible directors, so he knows that they're handcuffed. He's not beating them up too much. So anyway, you guys have in your careers played different characters, which makes sense. And was there a love the two of you had for the characters you did in this film? Which is a fair question, and he's calling it a film. Is it different? Does it feel like a challenge you haven't faced before? And I guess he means in the idea that it's streaming, which I don't know. I mean, a TV show in a lot of senses is a TV show, but let's let the AI finish up.
Different for it. Does it feel like a challenge you have?
Does it feel like a challenge you haven't
Yeah,
faced
because it's
before?
Tolkien. It's a whole new...
At least they're being very appreciative of the fact it's Tolkien. I mean, this is nothing like what we heard from the people who wrote the show, who, again, they were very, very sick and very, very insane, and they were very, very arrogant. And We have some quick outtake from that interview here.
Gebiet feindfrei! Ich brauche hier Verstärkung!
Yeah, that was the writers when he interviewed them. They number one, what do you think of what we're getting so far?
Not this time. We created it. Not this time.
Riker. Listen, I love my first officer. He's a cynic, but I'll never let him. I'll never let him serve anywhere else unless he really asks for a transfer. He's gonna have to get transferred out of here. But what a cynic. Anyway, let's go on here with Edwards. And so far Charles Edwards very honestly said the best thing about it was the end credits. Ben Walker very honestly has said he didn't understand it, needs to see it again, which is a charitable way of saying it doesn't make sense, but I can't say it.
I mean, just the fact that it's Tolkien is obviously a huge
right
temptation.
Right.
And but the audition process.
Now this is interesting. Charles Edwards is very much aware that people love the works of Tolkien, something that the writers are in denial of. They think that people were waiting for perfected Tolkien. Charles Edwards is a little older. He's been around the block. He saw the Peter Jackson movies in theaters for sure. He understands acting to a degree. He was one of the better actors on the show, just, again, cast as both of these people played douchebags, and they just saw that they played douchebags, and they're going to reveal they didn't know they were playing douchebags. They were told that their characters were correct. Watch this. Or listen to this.
Slightly staggered in that you auditioned for it. You knew it was Lord of the Rings, kinda.
Which I don't know what he means by that. Does he mean that he kinda had an inkling that this would be Lord of the Rings, or does he mean it's only kinda Lord of the Rings? Both are true, but listen to this.
You staggered in that you auditioned for it. You knew it was Lord of the Rings, kinda.
So we have to ponder that, but let's go.
And then you found out later what the role was.
He doesn't say how much later, and I don't know if he can, but I'm going to tell you that I think they found out on set for the most part.
So it's that moment of discovering exactly what the role was.
Wow. So what he's basically saying is they should have had more time to prepare. This is code for we did not have time to prepare. And he's feeling it about his performance. I mean, that picture is absolutely representational. You can go watch the real interview if you want,
because
their body language is deeply uncomfortable.
But a casual fan, I would say, I didn't know him. I didn't know what he'd done.
This Charles Edwards is so nervous that he's misspeaking a little bit, but I don't blame him. Charles Edwards should have been Doctor Who. He was a capable actor, and I'm not saying the new casting for Doctor Who's wrong, because I don't know it yet. I just know that Whittaker didn't work out and is now gone, and we got Tennant again for a minute, so that'll be a fun little breather after what we've been through with that franchise. But we're talking about specifically Rings of Power, Tolkien, and writers from Star Trek Discovery who don't know what they're doing, conning their actors.
So it's that moment of discovering exactly what the role was particularly exciting.
Wow.
Because
he says horrifying in a nice way, particularly exciting.
I'm a Tolkien fan, but a casual fan, I would say.
This is where he misspeaks, and it's kind of ambiguous. It sounds like he's saying he didn't know Tolkien, but what he was saying is he didn't deeply know Tolkien. And I don't think he's being very genuine here. Like, he's not being disingenuous. He's between a rock and a hard place. These writers have, gone to war with CBS and won to get on their inferior product and just embarrassed themselves and felt no shame about it. They've shamed CBS. They got sued off of Netflix, defiantly making a worse and worse Star Trek Discovery show every year, till a court-appointed arbitrator agreed with Netflix that it was a lie and not Star Trek, and that it didn't have to take it anymore. And look how fast all that Star Trek disappeared from Netflix, and that unfortunately took off the original series and Deep Space Nine and good Star Trek shows, and relegated them to Paramount, where they're shown poorly. But back to our replicants.
I didn't know him. I didn't know what he'd done. So because he's only glanced at by Tolkien in the.
Now he's talking of Celebrimbor. He didn't know about Celebrimbor. He didn't know what he'd done, and that's forgivable, because I had to, it took me a minute, and I had to look at the internet to remember who Celebrimbor was, because I read the books last after the movies when I was, a young man. and I read them first as a child. So I've read them like 2.5 times, and I've read The Hobbit like 5 times because it's an easy read.
So
You mean you didn't know Celebrimbor?
I didn't know.
I didn't know Tolkien.
Oh no, I didn't know.
I'm a casual.
See, there are nice guys. I like these people. I like these replicants of them too. And they're going to be well treated by us, but listen to how they were treated by the writers.
Fan, but I had
I've
never
never
met
heard the name.
Yeah.
Imagine how much you could have brought to the role if you'd known, Master Smith, some magical abilities. I think the deal here was these were older, better actors who would have fought for better portrayals and fought for an honorable part and fought to be treated well. As far as the story goes, the story makes liars of them all. It makes an absolute coward of High King Gil-Galad, and Celebrimbor came off as a douchebag.
It'd be amazing if you did that, right? What a story.
But also that is true in that
Right.
they tell you so little, but
That they tell you so little, but so many of us are, we can't tell you who it is.
so many of us, they're like, we can't tell you who it is, we can't tell you what the show is,
Wow.
we can't tell you where you're going.
Now this production was so big that I think that they really needed to disclose a lot more, like specifics. I mean, hire one of your executive producers. You already have them in place. Have them break loose minimum wage. These books are pleasant to read. Have somebody find Celebrimbor. Have the books in PDF form and hunt down the word Celebrimbor. I would have done that and just read everything about him. Charles Edwards seems to have the dedication. Ben Walker seems to have the dedication. Where was the commitment from the writers to help them out?
But we can say Tolkien, and we're like, I'm in.
Yeah.
That's a revelation too. As soon as they found out it was Tolkien, they were in. That was the hook. They weren't told anything else.
Yeah, it's
It's
true.
kind of simple, actually.
Simple and easy get confused as being the same thing. It was a simple thing. I too would have said yes to being a Tolkien show. And I wouldn't have walked off this one, and I probably also would have hung in with my castmates if I was told what these people were told. But they were in isolation to a degree. And plus, they were originally from Hollywood in a way, or England's version of Hollywood. So, they believed that they were doing the right thing, and they got information from their bosses who were paying them. We can't be too. I have no malice towards them.
Untitled Amazon project was what everyone was.
Untitled Amazon project was what everyone called it. And then they mentioned that once they heard New Zealand, they thought they knew what they're getting into at least.
And people were like,
That's still the interviewer in Poland.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I know what you're
Scott Davis is a nice guy, but he was given. Is he? Oh, does he work for? Is Hey You Guys part of Amazon? Someone find that one out. Put it in the comments. This will be uploaded later, and I'll be hanging around the chat looking. But this is just a fascinating look inside the level of deception done to the cast. And I mean, they didn't do this to the movie cast, and it was just as big of a deal. I mean, Viggo Mortensen was told, and also like these actors, I don't think it's an insult. No one in this show was Viggo Mortensen, who prepared for this in a couple of days.
You had me at UAP.
No, I mean these actors were eager to be in a good Tolkien project. And this is bad journalism.
And then everyone starts talking.
You had
right.
me at UAP.
Right.
And the great thing about the show,
There
obviously,
you
it's
go.
a huge epic,
This
but
is
there's
how
so
much-
much kind of practicality and
The interviewer is telling them a lot of things. He's telling them it's a huge epic. He's telling them there's a lot of practicality. He's telling them there's a grounded nature to it. He's not asking them if they feel that way. This is instruction. And how great was it for you guys that they created all this real tactile world with all this details and all this. And the interviewer is still talking, and I'm letting it run. He is framing the question that strongly, and he is still speaking. And he's still wrapping up his point about, what was it like to be on that set that they concocted for you? And let's hear them go.
inhabit.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean,
That's... The actors were taken aback, and here goes Edwards.
often you don't really know what's going to be. But I mean, the first time you see it, you go, "Oh my God, they've done that with that scene." You don't know. Like there was a scene we did, which I thought was at sort of dusk or dark, but then no,
Right.
in the actual thing, it was daylight. And
that's
but yeah, everything that you're surrounded with on the
minor
sets is
compared to
practical,
what we saw.
and movable through, like trees and streams.
Right.
So that's all. I mean, in the studio-based stuff, obviously outside.
Sure.
No, not this time.
Yeah, hugely helpful.
Oh, come on, give him a chance,
There's
right
a great
there.
camaraderie between all of you. I mean, I've spoken to.
Okay,
various
now this is
groups of
again.
people.
Davis, the interviewer, starts telling them how it was in their own experience, and he tries. He's not a bad guy, but I mean, he's like, complimentary to everyone you see. How great was it to be with these great people? And that's just not a real question. It's, tell me about your interactions with the cast. So, Charles Edwards, not a bad guy. Ben Walker, not a bad guy. These people aren't looking to make enemies. These people probably don't dislike their coworkers. Well, here we go.
That's been the reward of watching the episodes,
Right.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really know what each other was up to unless you.
And now he's saying, well, we didn't really see one another as far as the groups of people shooting. And that's something we heard from another project that had equal subversive bad intentions, The Rise of Skywalker, when Mark Hamill said, aside from Daisy Ridley, I haven't worked with the cast.
You're in that storyline or that world. So
And by the way, what does this say about their cast holiday party and stuff, right? Like, they didn't have one. Like, real camaraderie there.
see what everybody's been doing has been, really, very,
Wow.
very admirable.
Yeah, and also.
So he admires his castmates after seeing what they've been through. Think about, just take that at face value. That's what he said. I'm going to let him say it again really briefly. Go ahead, Charles Edwards.
Of watching the episodes,
Yeah.
because we didn't really know what each other was up to unless you're in that storyline or that world.
Now, that's not that unusual, but they've already said they didn't really know what they were doing.
So to see what everybody's been doing has been, really, very, very admirable.
So he just saw the parts that everyone was handed, and he thinks that it was admirable that they got through it. And we've almost gotten through this interview with these poor, mistreated replicants. And I've got to say, I would not want to have been through what they have been through. It's terrible. And
I'm a construction worker.
You're head of security on the USS Excelsior. And let's get something straight here. This is not the USS Excelsior as seen in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, although that is the time frame we are from. We are from that era. We are from 2282 by the old reckoning of the sainted Gene Roddenberry. And we're trying to help. We're trying to help. Our Excelsior is a Constitution-class starship. Now let's let this interviewer continue. I will speak for Scott Davis, who's nice as he is. He's handcuffed in this. He's just received the information from Charles Edwards that he feels that it was an admirable effort by the cast, and that's about all we get. And then the interviewer is back in there inserting a question, an excuse, really, that they did it during COVID.
Did it during COVID as well, which was,
adds another challenge. Everybody had that challenge.
Everybody anyway. So to have that.
You know what? Top Gun was made during COVID. What was the excuse for that one? But here we have an excuse, softball to the actors. Will they take this opportunity to excuse themselves, or will they be accountable, or will they just say, hey, we can't tell?
Must have been just an extra layer on top of the great stuff that you get to do with all these amazing people.
So, just continue the interviewer and continuing to instruct them that it was great, continuing to remind them not to get out of the line.
It was equal parts just incredible luck and all.
So he's just like, hey, it happens.
Also part of the chemistry I think that JD and Patrick wanted.
That is something. That is
You
something.
get to do with all these amazing people.
It was equal parts just incredible luck and also part of the chemistry
Right.
I think that JD and Patrick wanted.
So J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay wanted it this way. This is how they wanted it. Secretive, nonsensical, and very little, no feedback. They've also said they don't want any feedback from us, the fans. Season 2's written and they're not changing it. They said that as soon as this season ended, and this season ended with it began with controversy and was controversial the entire way through, or for the people in England, controversy. It was bad. People were fucking pissed.
That it was by design, I think.
Yeah.
And it
That is a bunch of stunning admissions in a row. No fault on Ben Walker here. He's just walked out of there and he's getting programmed by this interviewer, and he's got a mind of his own, and you can see him a little bit in his eyes. He's still processing this, and he knows not to commit to anything too
Part
strong.
of the chemistry, I think, that JD and Patrick wanted.
That's not what I
That it
want. I
was
want a
by
little more than that. Let's go.
The great stuff that you get to do. with all
Listen
these
to
amazing
the.
It was equal parts just incredible luck.
And that is something we heard over and over from Patrick McKay. It's a slot machine. It's a slot machine. It's luck. It's a slot machine.
And also part of the chemistry, I think, that JD and Patrick wanted.
So J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay ran the set the way they wanted. We can't talk about anybody getting out of line or chemistry that was, imposed by a feeling of bad will by the fans. This was finished before there was any problem.
That it was by design, I think.
Yeah.
And they kept a closed shop where they didn't let anything from the outside in, seems to be the indication
Very
we're
cleverly
getting
put
here.
together.
Yeah. And what are you most excited for?
Charles Edwards just said that almost under his breath, because he's absolutely gobsmacked.
JD
Listen,
and Patrick wanted.
this is what they wanted.
That
Listen
it
to
was
Charles
by
Edwards
design,
here.
I think.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
It was very cleverly put together.
Yeah. What?
And almost under his breath, it was very cleverly put together. I wonder exactly what Charles Edwards
Are you
means
most
by
excited
that
for
one.
audiences to
And
see
listen to
out?
how
Because
much
there's
talking the
there's so
interviewer
much. Is there
does.
a
This is
moment that you've seen in the bits
absolutely
that you've seen so far
bad
where you think,
interviewing
wow, I can't
to
wait
do
for
it this way.
Tolkien
And
fans to
he's,
see that.
it's not even a real question. He's like, you've done so much work. Was there a moment you wanted to see, a Tolkien moment, a moment that was Tolkien-esque? I guess is what he's trying to say, but, wordy and evasive. And Edwards and Walker are going to try to field this one. And they're uncomfortable now talking about Tolkien in the context of this project.
I mean, this
There are many.
goes on. I think the best case scenario, you
Yeah?
watch the first season and people go out and buy the books.
Good advice. Ben Walker, keeping it safe, keeping it secret, keeping it safe. He knows the show's terrible. He's keeping it secret that he is embarrassed, and he is playing it safe by not burning any bridges. These two actors are far from enthralled or thrilled. It's not like they just saw a great film for the first time.
Like, I'm excited for die-hard Tolkien fans to watch it a sixth time and see something new
Wow.
that reassures them, and that
Nothing is going to reassure us. I'm sorry, Ben. You're saying the right thing, though. You're making it abundantly clear that what you saw on the screen was confounding to at least you. And Charles Edwards is nodding his head in agreement over and over.
Because
that
those things are
fuels their already existing passion.
It's like, please buy the books, and I hope we don't mess up the books for you. Nice thing to say, really, actually.
But also, I'm excited for people that have no context for Tolkien for this to be their gateway, and they go,
He's trying to say the right thing. I would
What are you trying to
call
say?
that a non
Yeah.
sequitur.
Like it was when we were little.
yeah.
They're not bad guys. They were lied to.
Or younger at least, like 9 years old.
Yeah.
Well, Celebrimbor, he was 9 years old in around 1970, is my guess.
It was. I can't remember a moment, except perhaps Star Wars, that quite recently too.
Wow, that is unbelievable
Amazing.
that he would say that. I was not expecting him to play into my point.
I'm a Tolkien fan, but a casual fan, I would say. I didn't know him. I didn't know who.
Charles Edwards has been very honest throughout this whole thing. And
I didn't know.
I didn't know Tolkien.
Oh no, just no.
they were lied to.
And New Zealand was dropped in, and people were like,
They had only a few clues to go on.
Yeah, but often you don't really know what's going to be. But I mean, the first time
They
you
didn't
see it,
know.
oh my God, they've done that with that scene. You
Yeah,
don't
oh
know.
my
Like,
God, they've done that.
there was a scene we did which I thought was at sort of dusk or dark.
Right, because they couldn't figure out day and night, so he filmed the scene for daytime and they just swapped it.
But then no, in the actual thing it was daylight. And
Stunning
but yeah,
admissions.
everything that you're surrounded with on the sets is
Stunning.
magical.
Stunning. When asked about the set, he's saying they were swapping day and night. And then he gets back to what he was asked was about the props. Like, oh yeah, the things we picked up and handled were practical, which I mean, you would expect them to be.
Movable through, you know, like trees.
And then we get
Groups of people, and everyone's so complimentary.
Davis is, you know, just like, oh, you're great people who had a great time together. And Charles Edwards is not going to piss all over that. He says,
Because we didn't really know what each other was up to unless you're in
Right.
that storyline or that world. So to see what everybody's been doing has been, really,
really,
you know, very, very,
very
Yeah, and also you guys did it
under
during
these
COVID.
circumstances. And here comes the COVID excuse and a bunch of stunning admissions that we just heard. We needed context on this.
The great stuff that you get to do with all these.
And you can hear the interviewers saying, that must have been another burden on this great production. Like, he's pre-declaring it great. It's not that, you know, level of an interview. He was a little more. Davis was a little more direct with a couple of questions to the directors, but I guess he's just got empathy for these people here because he's just seen it too. And then we hear the luck
Both parts.
You know, the
Just
luck,
incredible luck, and also
and
part
this
of
is
the
how
chemistry. I
these
think,
guys
JD and
wanted
Patrick
it.
wanted. That it was by
This is how
You've
they
seen
wanted
the
it.
bits that you've seen so far, where you think, wow, I can't wait for
And then they're asked about the Tolkienian moment
moment.
that they were waiting to see, and no one can name it. They say something else.
I think the best case scenario, you watch the first season and people go out and buy the books.
So he's basically saying right here, like, please, like, read how my character Gil-Galad wasn't the douchebag I'm shown as.
Like, I'm excited for die-hard Tolkien fans to watch it a sixth time and
No one is watching it again.
see something new that reassures them and that
Nothing is going to reassure anyone.
Those things
fuels their already existing passion. But
That's
also I'm
not
excited
gonna
for people
happen.
that have no context.
You did
for
fuel
Tolkien
people's
to-
passion. It wasn't
for
your
this
fault.
to be their gateway, and they go.
It's not going to be. It's going to be a deterrent
Yeah,
from
like
reading
it was when we
Tolkien,
were little.
and
Yeah.
book
You know,
sales are
or
going to go
young
down.
kids, you know,
Is
like
my
9 years
prediction.
It was
They go up.
I can't remember
They will go up briefly, and then
moment
they
I
will
set
just
up
go
Star Wars
down,
that was
especially when the
so-
second season comes
so-
out. And here's the amazing, and we're almost done, but here's the amazing New Hope comment here.
I can't remember a moment, except perhaps Star Wars, that was so had such an effect on me as discovering Tolkien.
All right, that's Charles Edwards wants you to know he loves Tolkien, and that, you know, he's trying. He's not talking about the production. Here we go again. Stunning admission.
Had such an effect on me as discovering Tolkien. I can't remember a moment, except perhaps Star Wars,
That's how big it was. Seeing A New Hope.
that was so had such an effect on me
That's something.
as discovering Tolkien.
I agree with him there, and that's, you can see that he went in with the best of intentions to play a good part. Even though they only gave poor Celebrimbor one costume and made him into a douchebag, this guy went in with the best faith effort, and so did Ben Walker. I feel bad for them.
Those are the two major sort of events
In your life?
In my life.
Wow, so this has really got to be hurting poor Charles Edwards.
No, not quite in my life. But
You can see why he's self-conscious. He never stops thinking. The only time I ever saw the looks I'm seeing here is after the tragically failed Led Zeppelin Live Aid show, where it was clear that Led Zeppelin shouldn't come back and Led Zeppelin had been overrated, and Led Zeppelin was on its way up after they broke up. And then we saw the reason that kept them down while they were together was live. Sometimes it could be a really terrible disaster. And when they asked Ben Orr of the Cars, wasn't that great? That was the kind of look he had. And his comment was, yeah. Look at the end of that performance and watch Mark Goodman from MTV interviewing Ben Orr, sainted Ben Orr of the great band The Cars, as he regards the shambolic Led Zeppelin reunion that we saw back in, I believe it was 1987. You can see that on YouTube. Woohoo! What a mess.
in my formative years of
And by the way, that disastrous, cringy moment was over in 25 minutes, maybe 40. this terrible Lord of the Rings show was as cringe or cringer than any moment of that Led Zeppelin reunion disaster, but for like 10 hours. And Led Zeppelin, essentially, they can go back like Tolkien and say, well, look at our albums, those are good, you know, forget about that one bad thing. And hopefully this is Tolkien's Live Aid.
Of wondering about acting and wondering about performing and wondering about imagination and creation, all those things. Yeah.
So he's an artist. He enjoys creating, collaborating. I can't tell you how sad I am for him.
Fantastic. I wish you all the best for it, guys. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
And that's it. He wraps it up. They thank him, and he treats them very badly. It is a very sick and very disgusting way. It's very sick and disgusting way to treat the cast. And in this one, I'm going to buy it back. Davis, still not a bad guy, still just doing his job, but I'm going to say, like, hey, you guys, are you an Amazon shell company? Or did you get something from Amazon to go so easy on these people? This was a little bit stunning. At any rate, we saw some of what their creators said last time, and, you know, compared to these poor actors, it was, you know, far more toxic, far more sick. I mean, what we saw here with these people is that they signed on for a Tolkien project that they knew would be in New Zealand. They were all down for it. They went out there and did their darndest for it.
Hello.
And then these Hey You Guys people send Davis out there, and he has to make excuses for these people, J.D. McCain, J.D. Payne, and Patrick McKay, who have things to say like this.
Tapping the ground, we felt like geysers of you know, stories just kind of kept on sprouting up everywhere we looked, and we said,
Really now?
This is Tolkien's great untold epic.
Wow.
You know, sort of like tapping the ground, we felt like geysers of you know, stories just kind of kept on sprouting up everywhere we looked, and we said, this is Tolkien's great untold epic.
So these are the writers. I mean, don't you? I feel bad for these replicants. Arnie, what do you think?
Put that cookie down!
They can have the cookie. I mean, they've been through hell.
Now!
No.
Cookies?
Let them have the cookies. Listen, my security officer, he doesn't trust them. Number one?
It's totally made up. Pure fiction. It's fiction.
Number one?
It's fiction. We made it up.
We didn't make it up. I'm not taking
We made this
any.
one up.
No.
It's a made-up tale.
It is
It's
a made-up. It's a made-up tale.
Fabrication. It never happened.
I wish it had never happened. My first officer is just such a cynic. I want to thank you for joining me here. Let me walk you over to the transporter room. It's been quite the experience with these poor lost replicants from the 21st century. Fortunate enough to found a hole in time. It's funny, we had all 25 executive producers, and they all got fried by an energy field. A clearly marked energy field that said, do not touch energy field. And we were saying to them, don't touch the energy field. And every single one of them had to go up and touch it. We couldn't stop them. I mean, these were not, I mean, my medical officer was absolutely baffled.
She's dead, Jim.
Yeah.
She's dead, Jim.
The level of tragedy that we saw that day. And these just, it was not made by the smartest people. It was not made by the smartest company. I mean, Amazon, wow. I mean, just stunningly dumb. Stunningly dumb. At any rate, you should like and sub this channel. I think that it would be great if we could get back together at a point in the future and discuss maybe some of these other pop culture incidences that are going on, because we've all been through hell with some of these shows. I mean, Rings of Power was an absolute disaster that no one deserved to have to watch, and we're going to take a stand against it. Please like and sub this channel. It's your pal, Admiral Teag. And I will see you again soon. Keep your screens up and keep your scanners on full. There's replicants out there.